Good morning from Hawaii. Aloha. My name is Juergen Steinmetz with eTurboNews. Thank you for joining us, and we're excited to test this system a little bit different, so everyone can actually join us with a camera and also can participate very easily. We want to keep this very interactive. Once we give you an introduction and Dov speaks, feel free to raise your hand. I don't physically mean raise your hand. You just click on the link on the right side of your screen. There is a raise hand link, and then we'll see it here, and we give you the microphone and the camera, and you can ask questions. Because we have limited time, would you please try to keep all questions. I'm sorry, I'm going to mute everyone. Dov, and if you unmute yourself after unmute everyone, so we don't have the back noise, okay? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so anyways, I muted everyone because otherwise we have a lot of background noise here. But you can unmute yourself, so it's a kind of a trust system, but we don't want background because then everyone else hears background, and we're expecting actually more than 200 people. It is also live streamed on Facebook today, and will be on live streamed a little bit in delay on YouTube. So we're going to have a good audience today. Again, for those that now arrived, so my name is Juergen Steinmetz. I'm here from Hawaii, from eTurboNews. With me is Dr. Peter Tarlow. He's the head of Safer Tourism based in Texas. And then we have Dov Kahlman. Dov Kahlman is based in Tel Aviv in Israel. He's our guest today, and we'll speak about some interesting development in regards to tourism in Israel. Please don't unmute your microphone unless you're speaking. Otherwise, we have all this background noise and then no one can hear anything anymore. Dov, I also have you unmuted, and I have you unmuted, Peter, so you can unmute yourself if you want. In any case, aloha from Hawaii. I hope where you are, everything is okay.
Hello?
We're still yes, put you, let me mute this,
sure,
please.
Please mute your mic.
Yeah. Peter, I had to mute you again. There's no need to say hello because it will kind of work out for everyone. Sorry about that, guys. But once you have a later on, you will be able to speak. It's not a problem. Now, again, aloha from Hawaii, where like everyone else, most of you, I think, depending where you are, we're inside. You see me inside my apartment, and we're enjoying a beautiful day. The beaches are closed, but we had good news. They're going to be open again on May 1st. So I'm looking forward to that. And it looks like we're going back a little bit. Before we start, just a few housekeeping requests. One, to please leave your microphone muted. We already said that, so we can make it accessible to all of you. And second, if you have a question, trying to really just ask your question within 30 seconds. If there's more than 30 seconds, it'll be too long. We have a lot of people joining, and if you have questions later, you can either chat with us, or you go to eTurboNews.com, or you go to safertourism.com, or any of our websites, and simply click on contact, and we will definitely respond to you after this event. Also, before we start, I'd like to share with you an initiative we're involved in, and I hope everyone else gets involved in. If you look at, I think you can probably see my screen. It's a new project where we started in under the umbrella of the African Tourism Board. It's called Project Hope Travel. It's we don't know where this will go. It's a grassroots program. We have some really interesting people that are already part of this program. I don't know if you can see my screen. Peter, can you see the screen?
Yeah, we can see it just perfectly.
Okay, perfect. And you see people you probably know, including Dr. Taleb Rifai. Many of you know the former Secretary General from the UNWTO. We have Pascal. I think he's also joining us here. We have the executive board, the entire executive board from the African Tourism Board. and they are actually the initiator of this movement. We have Dov, who will be speaking here later on. So it's easy to join. There's no cost, doesn't cost anything. Just go online, and then all we do, we will start a community where you can interact and actually have meaningful discussions on COVID-19 on any level. It's it's a project in development, and it's as good as everyone is who's part of the project. Just simply go to project-to-hope.travel and you can join. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Peter Tarlow, my partner on with eTurboNews and our Safer Tourism project. So Peter, the microphone and the camera is yours. Good morning.
Great, thanks. So welcome everyone. For those of you who have not heard our program before, it's basically a review of tourism during the last week. We talk about events, what's going on, ideas. We try to create some time to allow people to ask questions. And we invite one person each week to come and be a special guest and somewhat highlight his or her country. So this week, we are very pleased to have Mr. Dov Kahlman, who is from Israel. And later on in the program, we'll be introducing him, asking him to speak a few moments about how the world of tourism, or right now the world of non-tourism, but hopefully, again, it will be the world of tourism, is looking from the perspective of Israel and from the Middle East. If you'd like to be on the program, please write to us. You can write to me at pt@safertourism.com and or just contact our website, and I will make sure that we pick a time when you will be able to speak about your country or your major tourism project. So that's kind of the way it goes. Right now, we're going to start with Juergen and I having a somewhat of an interactive connection. If you're not familiar with Juergen Steinmetz, I think he's probably the leading tourism journalist in the world. He
don't say that.
he's the publisher of eTurboNews, my partner in crime in this event. And if you don't know me, I work in the area of tourism safety and security, tourism well-being. I've written numerous books on the subject. I am the head from Mexico City's tourism police, their international unit, and I'm working with countries such as Jamaica in the Caribbean, but literally all around the world. So please, if you have a question or a concern, please speak with me. I spent the morning doing a podcast with the Caribbean Tourism Association. Obviously, Juergen, before our first part of the conversation, has got to be on the still, hopefully, rebirth of tourism. There have been many issues that are taking place. It's still not doing well. Some of the airlines have gone out of business. Others are looking for loans. On top of that, it would be a mistake to think the world has stopped only for that. For example, there were major floods in Angola this week, and 15 people died, and that created a tourism crisis. So around the world, many things are happening. But one of the things I think is interesting, if we compare New York City, it was about the same size as Hong Kong. But Hong Kong has done so much better than New York when it came to this crisis. At least not the economic side, but at least the health side. What do you think it is that caused, let's start with that conversation. What kind of caused Hong Kong to be so successful and New York to be so unsuccessful when they have many similarities? They both are very tightly packed cities. They both are about 7.5 million people. They both don't have a lot of open spaces. And yet one has almost no problems, or very few, and New York has had the epicenter for the United States of the pandemic.
Peter, of course, it's hard to say. I think Hong Kong had a head start, first of all, because China dealt with the epidemic in another region of the country. So Hong Kong had time to prepare itself. Hong Kong is quite disciplined. It's quite regulated in a way, and it's very sophisticated. I think New York was caught by complete surprise, because I know when I left for Berlin, and the non-happening ITB, I left Hawaii on February 27th. Everyone said, and I flew through New York, everyone said, oh, it's nothing we have to worry about in New York. Even the governor, who is now definitely has a
TV
different
personality.
opinion, TV personality, said it's nothing to worry about. I think the whole world somehow got caught by surprise. It's not only these two cities. When I got to Berlin, ITB was still supposed to happen. You see where the world is now.
Yes, I think you're right. I think there's some other issues, though, also. Hong Kong has really done a good job in robotics. And one of the things that we're going to have to look upon is I don't believe tourism will come back the way it was. I think we're going to see a very different world of tourism. And that means we've got to create new concepts. Can we create, for example, airports where instead of being served by a server, those can be done by robots that have been desensitized as far as germs or de-Germanized, I guess might be the way. Can we create situations where we have less people touching other objects? That may be one of the things we have to do. That will be a real challenge for some of the industries, such as the cruise industry, which is very much hands-on deck. And how do we create good customer service and at the same time create distancing between people? So that's going to be a real challenge to the whole world of tourism. The other challenge is we're going to have to face is that the coronavirus or COVID-19 was not just a health crisis, but it provoked a major economic crisis. Today, when I was speaking on the Caribbean podcast, one of the things I pointed out to is the two biggest parts of the Caribbean's influx of people, their main markets are the United States, North America, Canada, the United States, and Europe. And if those areas sneeze economically, the Caribbean catches pneumonia. So it will be really important to figure out ways so that we're able to move on economically and not just the health, of course, is essential, but going beyond that, also making sure that we have economic health.
Yeah, and of course, it's a really fine line. I know this discussion, Peter, is not everywhere. If you look at the discussion we had in Georgia and Atlanta, for example, the governor wants to open everything. He said we're going to go bankrupt. People are hungry. On the other hand, what could happen if Georgia really opens and this virus would go haywire? I can tell you, here in Hawaii, we're a tourism-dependent economy, 100%. From just a few weeks ago, we were looking for people to come and work in the hospitality industry. There was literally no unemployment. Today, we have the highest unemployment rate anywhere in the United States. And that is all tourism related. But should we open the economy? Our mayor here in Honolulu and our governor decided otherwise, even though we have the lowest number of cases per million people. We have a very good rate of testing, but it's not perfect. It's a little bit above the middle of the line. And we have a very low death rate. Right now, we have 555 people that may be up and down, one or two now, infected, but we have almost 400 some people recovered. So there's only like 100 some people in the lower 100 that are still affected by this virus. We had 12 people dead. So we're doing excellent, but should we open up for tourism? I don't know. Our governor and our mayor decided against it. So our economy, at least till May 31st, will be stopped.
May 31st or April 31st?
It's just extended to May 31st.
Wow.
And that is a long time. And people are getting desperate in a lot of ways. But people are also, we have the aloha spirit. So people are all behind it. Everyone is understanding the situation and everyone is calm. But how much longer could it be that people are calm? So I think there are uncertain times. If you look at other parts of the world, like you look at Africa, Africa started literally when the rest of the world was already struggling. Africa really didn't have any cases. And it's still low. Africa was smart enough to really close the borders in an early stage. And it really hasn't progressed to, I would say, an absolute dangerous level because people are sophisticated. Look at Nepal. Nepal was one of the first countries that only let people in when they have a health certificate. But how difficult is it to get this health certificate for Corona? It's almost impossible. So we're going to see a lot of changes, I think.
Yes, I think you're right. We're going to see huge changes. And on top of that, the world is somewhat dividing between those people who have a job and are not necessarily suffering because of the self-containment, the fact that people have to stay at home. And those people especially have small businesses or were dependent on the gray economy. In other words, economies where they had to go out and sell things on a daily basis in order to survive. And those people are in a very bad situation. A perfect example of that is in Guayaquil, Ecuador, where you have literally hundreds of people dying because these are poor people who live day by day by whatever it is that they could sell. They live in shanty towns, and you cannot just contain them. Social containment does not work in that situation, and so they're getting infected. Now, one of the big problems tourism will face is that, and this is something we've worried for a long time about, it's we move people from one place to another. So if we bring back, and we need to bring back transportation, which is an essential part of tourism, that means, though, how will people go from not just Europe and the United States, but literally around the world? And how will we know who's bringing what germs, especially when we have problems of people being asymptomatic? And therefore, we don't really know. Even the testing is questionable. As everyone knows, when you go for your annual checkup, that's really not to see if you're well. That's to create a bottom line. So the doctor, if something does happen, they have a baseline. In this case, if I have a checkup for corona or COVID on Monday, and I get COVID on Tuesday, my negative result is no longer valid on Wednesday. So probably the best test, which we're now beginning to develop, is that of antibodies. We don't know how long those antibodies will last. We really don't have, there are a lot of information we still do not have dealing with this disease, but we do know that at least for some time, if you have antibodies, that does protect you. How well is still an open question. So there are two types of tests. One test says, do you have it or not? And the other is, have you had it or not? One is before and one is after. I personally think the after is going to be a much more successful test in our ability to reopen. But this is going to be a really major debate among the medical profession, the political class, and the people in the professions such as tourism professionals.
No, absolutely right, Peter. And I think this is going to be an ongoing discussion, and also a discussion we like to bring under the umbrella of Project Hope Travel. So join us here and watch our shows. We're doing our part, at least we're trying to do our part to give a lot of people a voice, because also I think after or during the course of this epidemic, we will probably identify a whole new class of leaders and approaches in the tourism industry. It's not going to be the same thing we always do. We're probably not going to have the same people in charge who always are being in charge. So things are up to a change, and we all should have, should be part of it, because it's our industry, and for most of us, it's our livelihood. Peter, maybe we should, if it's okay, we can go to Dov. I know he's
yes, I was just going to introduce.
Yes, please do.
Yes. So as I said, we try to have a guest speaker at every session, and anyone who would like to be a guest speaker and represent their country or their part of the tourism industry, please feel free to do that. Today, we are very pleased to have as our guest speaker, Dov Kahlman, who's from Tel Aviv, Israel. And he's going to first, Dov, in Israel, it's evening. So, Laila Erev Tov and Shalom.
Shalom.
Welcome to our session. Dov, would you tell us a little bit? Israel was a major tourism powerhouse. It was having really probably its best year in tourism. And all of a sudden, here comes Corona, and it goes from boomtown to bust. But tell us a little bit about how you see the world from Tel Aviv.
First of all, yes, shalom, and it's wonderful to be here. All these changes and suddenly meeting numerous people from around the world on an evening here, and a Thursday evening, which is normally my art evening in Tel Aviv, and spending the time with you guys, it's a wonderful experience. And I'm very glad also to share some of the findings that we as a marketing and marketing company in charge of being the storyteller of many foreign tourism boards and airlines and hotel chains, etc., what we have found during the last few weeks, actually. Well, yes, indeed, Israel was a wonderful, great story. I would like maybe to show you one slide, if it works, but it doesn't work. Okay, here we are. About the situation we had in Israel. Well, actually, I see the slide is not here. It doesn't matter. We had 8.3 million trips that were made by Israelis last year, and we have only 9 million Israelis. So 8.3 million trips made by 4.3 million Israelis. That means 1 out of every 2 Israelis flew abroad last year, which is an enormous figure if you compare that, especially to, let's say, 9 years before, in 2010, then we had only 3.4 million trips, 3.4 compared to 8.3 million, which means it's an increase of 250% of outbound traffic from Israel abroad. And we're going to maybe talk about it a little bit later, why Israelis travel so much. It's part of our DNA. I mean, we have been traveling around the world for 2,000 years. But more than that, I mean, living in this area, you need to get some fresh air. And that that concept has been actually being translated quite widely. So it's many trips a year that Israelis make. And the only way that we can travel is by plane. I mean, we can't just take a car like the Europeans and travel around. We have to take a flight in order to get out of this region and to get somewhere. Yes. If you allow me, I would like to share some of the we represent tourism boards, as I said before, and hotel chains and airlines, you name it, that have an interest in the Israeli market. And a couple of weeks when we were already in quarantine here, one of our clients asked us, "Listen, Dov, we want you to make a strategic analysis of 2021, and with an action plan, and you have to create a strategy that makes sense." I said, "What the heck? I mean, we don't know what is happening tomorrow. How can we create a program for 2021? I mean, we don't, there's so many question marks." They said, "Well, listen, you have no choice. You have 4 days time. You have to make this paper." And we prepared actually a paper. But first, in order to make that paper, we had to create some clarity. We had to, prepare some kind of flashlight. We had to find a flashlight. We had to find a compass and a roadmap in order to reach that action plan. In all this darkness, how do you find your way? And so we created a model, just in order to know what we are going to do, how we are going to deal with this demand of an in-depth strategy and action plan for next year. And we created a 4-step model. And actually, with your permission, I just going to do it very quickly. I have very little time, but I think it's very interesting, actually. The first stage is a stage of retreat, which consists of stages like rest. We have to allow ourselves, I want, you can read it yourself. I won't get into all of these stages, but we are certainly within stage number 1, but we are not in this stage anymore that we can allow ourselves to rest. On the contrary, we have to wake up much earlier and we have to go to bed much later, because there is so much work to do right now in order to, what I say as the number 1 demand in this period, in this stage. The number 1 task is keep the travel dream alive of all our clients, all our partners, all those who are searching, who are waiting for us to go back, and all those who are unemployed around the world. We have to show solidarity. We have to create hope. That passion is what tourism is all about. And in this period, more than ever, we have to show what the real meaning is of tourism. Tourism has to be one mankind. It has to be a dream. And that dream is not just a candy that you can, you can take it or not take it. It's a must in order for everyone to reset. We have to get back to that travel dream. So we created, actually, within this plan, we created 5 marketing strategies. And on those strategies, actually, we created an action plan. I don't share with you the action plan, that is for the client, but I can give you the strategy. So it's the number one is that travel dream. And then it's the inspiration, the motivation, the activation and education of the masses of people that are stuck at home, of our partners, of the travel partners. We have to use every possible moment, like what we are doing here right now. And I've listened to you, Juergen and Peter, for so many times and learned from you guys. And I learned from so many webinars around the world in order to better understand where to direct my compass to and how to create that roadmap. So that is what we have to share with other people. And then we have, very important, we have to define whether you are a tourism board or hotelier or an airline, you have to define where are your new potential growth segments. That is not the same public that we have in our planes or in our hotels just a couple of weeks ago. Those who were there might not come back, or at least not in this year. But there are other segments that might be much earlier in coming back. This is a very important task for everyone in the tourism industry to define those new segments. And then it's, of course, trace the contacts that you could never reach because no one had time. We have time. We can go back to all those contacts in our database and think together of how to prepare for the next stage. Same is true for potential marketing partners, cross-marketing partners, and find models in which we can share costs, because no one has money right now in this time. So we have to share costs in order to prepare for session number 2. And that is actually the stage number 2, is the stage of the restart. Slowly. Okay. Just before one more thing. In the retreat, we defined it actually, when is this going to take place? Well, it's obvious we are right now in that stage, but that stage will end the moment that we see that airlines start announcing that they're coming back. And here, for example, in Israel, we are very lucky because already 4 airlines announced that they are going to fly back, and actually quite soon. That is the British already with a daily flight on the 1st of May, they start. Then it's Delta Airlines with a daily flight on the 8th of May, they start. United Airlines, Air Canada, they already announced. And there are even airlines that never stopped, like Ethiopian. So we starting to see some kind of relaxation. We as Israelis, we can get out of our home already. So we slowly, we are getting back. And so this stage will end the moment that airlines will start announcing that
if I could interrupt you for a second, would you be willing to share with us this presentation and we'll send it out to everyone?
Of course, more than glad.
Okay, thank you. So a number of people have been sending that question to me, and the answer is that afterwards we do have everyone's email, and once Dov sends it to us, we will send it to everyone who signed up for this session.
Yeah, Peter, we already have everyone's email with the sign up, so there's no need to send us the email.
Once we get Dov's program, we'll send it out to everybody.
Yeah.
You want to continue? Okay. So I just want to raise a few. I really won't go over all the issues, all the slides, and even within those slides, this is just 5% actually of this strategic plan. But I want to share some of the very fabulous things that we found. We found it's not darkness. Yes, it is a lot of many question marks. And like you said, Peter, before, there are many questions that we don't have an answer on. But we can create within this period, we can create that light that we need in order to get moving back again. It will be a very different kind of tourism industry. I have no doubt about it, like you said before. Actually, the last stage of our plan actually is actually the last stage in which we go back the Renaissance. After the Renaissance, we will get back to the renewal of tourism, and then we will grow even further than what we have been in 2019, without any doubt. It will not be as dark. That will take place, according to our views, in the third quarter of 2021. And that will be a different tourism, I think. It will be much more boutique hotels. It will much more, there will be still the importance of space, of physical space between us. It will be secluded tropical destinations. It will be less mass events, etc., etc. But it will be a different world. It will be much more sustainability that counts. And in order to, as you said before, since we share this program with all the others, everyone is more than glad to share their view with me, with you, with all guys, ask questions, come up with suggestions, etc.
Dov, that was really wonderful. Toda rabah. Thank you very much. Could you just say for one quick second, what does it feel like in Israel right now? Because obviously you don't have a lot of tourists, as nobody does in the world. Give us a little bit of what is it like for the people working in the tourism industry in Israel? 1 or 2 sentences.
Well, I think Juergen mentioned it just before. I think, like everyone in the world, I mean, you know by now who belongs to which camp. I mean, of course, it's a drama for the tourism industry. I mean, you can talk whatever you want, but as for now, there's no work, neither inbound, nor outbound, nor domestic. But there are those who see the light and who create the light, and those who see the problems. And it will be those who have enough strength to create that path who will survive. And I think this is the whole story that I wanted to share with you so much. I mean, we can look at the problems, and you know, one recommendation for all you esteemed guests. I mean, the first thing I did at the beginning of the crisis, I decided not to listen to news. Not to listen to news, not even 1 minute per day, because that 1 minute is a lost minute. Of course, I read the newspapers in the morning and in the evening. I'm updated completely, but news is getting us down. And we, as leaders of the tourism industry, our task, more than any other industry, is to get the people up again, to get the dream alive again. And that is also what is happening in this travel industry.
Yes, great. By the way, I'm sure many people have noticed that Dov has, the first time we've ever had a speaker, a guest speaker, who coordinated his shirt with the background. So he's got beautiful flowers in the background and beautiful flowers on his shirt. Very good. Juergen, I think this is the time we need to open
Yes.
the floor up. So maybe if people would like to let us know that they'd like to speak, and Juergen will call on you, and you can ask a question to anybody you want, any of the three of us.
And you can actually easily raise your hand there should be a part on the right side of your screen. If you click on participants, you can raise your hand, and then I'll see it here. We can give you the microphone. Also, you can, if you don't know where this is, just send us a chat. I'm watching the chats right now. And we can also find you, but easier if you just raise your hand if anyone wanted to say anything, what we would welcome, of course. Anybody
like to say a question? Or
it always takes the first one.
Yes. Then they'll start coming. But we promise we don't bite.
No, we won't bite. Okay.
I will.
Okay.
Okay, there is Francisco Nunes, so I'm going to unmute Francisco. Francisco, it's you're on the show.
And tell us where you're from, Francisco.
I am from Mexico. Nice to see you again, Peter. Nice to see everyone.
See you.
Yes. Well, one thing that's fresh for me that I want to ask about, see if you guys have had any. I know you're in different parts of the world, in different cities. I'm what you call a border child. I'm in the border between the U.S. and Mexico. So I'm binational and bicultural. My neighborhood is both countries. But what I've seen right now happening in the US, I guess I want to know, and I don't know if I'm opening up a can of worms, but I want to know if you guys have the same conflict we've been having at home in the US with the anti-lockdown people. Any of those, I know that some businesses have decided to open, but that's not so much the aggressiveness we're seeing right now. Is that happening anywhere else, guys? That's kind of what I want to know.
So he's really asking for anybody who'd like to jump in. And wherever we have people listening from all over the world, in the United States and in some of the other countries now, there are people who are really pushing for open. Enough is their argument. The other side of that argument is, no, we're not quite ready yet. And yes, we know you're suffering, but we have to continue to go along because this is a health emergency and we have no choice. So those are two big differences. It's also breaking down by social class and by economic class. So people who are on salary are basically not suffering economically. People who have to have small businesses or work on a daily, for their daily bread, so to speak, are having a much more difficult time and are afraid of starving to death, and they'll never see the end of it. So that is a really major issue that's going on, at least in the United States, in some parts of Europe. If someone else would like to jump in, please let us know.
Yeah, and just to add to it, I mean, here in where I'm at in Hawaii, we don't have this type of movement. So everyone is pretty much solid behind to keep us separated. We are an island state, so we're in a very different position. And actually there are voices in the other direction. There are voices we should not really allow passenger flights coming in unless it's essential business. But we made tourism almost impossible. Legally, you can still come to Hawaii on a vacation, but once you get here, you have to be in quarantine for 2 weeks in your hotel room. You're not allowed even to go to a pool if there is one left, and you have to order food from Uber Eats or one of these outside sources because the restaurants in all the hotels that are open are actually closed. And the second thing is the beach parks are closed and the parks are closed. So anyone who really wants to go here and follow the law, it's pretty much impossible. And this is happening because our governor didn't want the tourists to come in at this point, but our president didn't want to put the restriction on the flight. So there is a lot of tension in some areas between the federal government and the local government. And I hear from my sister in Germany, I talked to this morning, and I don't know if anyone is on from Germany who could confirm it, but some of the stores she lives in Düsseldorf, at the main shopping street were open and no one showed up. There were no customers. The stores were open. Everyone thought it's going to be crowded and they have to control the crowd and to maintain social distancing. Didn't happen. People didn't come. So I don't know, if anyone else has an experience. It's actually an interesting question. So anyone wants to comment on it or has another question, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll be happy to give you the microphone. But thank you very much, Francisco. This was interesting.
Excellent question. Anyone else?
Okay, yeah, there is someone else here. I can, I don't know, Anne? I don't know if this is just your profile picture with your hand or if you're raising your hand. Anne, did you have a question?
Yes, I did.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hi. I'm from Toronto, Canada, and I see that there's other fellow Canadians here, and I just wanted to comment. Here in Canada, we're steering the course itself. So, and we've also been extremely lucky that the government, the federal government, has come out with some really good programs to keep people at home. It's not to say that, there aren't sectors that are suffering. And by the way, I'm in the MICE sector. I used to be in the tour and travel side of it, yes. But we're actually all in the same boat. So it's very interesting to hear from the tourism side what you guys are going through, because on the MICE and the business travel side, we're going through the same. But in regards to Canada, we're steering the course. The borders are closed right now between Canada and the United States, other than essential travel for goods and services that have to come across. But other than that, everybody's on a stay-at-home unless you're an essential worker that has to go out. We're under lockdown right now until the middle of May. It probably will be extended until, I'd say early June, but it seems to be working because we're not doing badly here. But again, we'll see.
Perfect.
That's great. And thank you for that insight, because when people tell us where they're from, that gives us a real idea of what's going on in the world. So thank you. That's terrific.
And Peter, we have another guest, Charlie Osborne. Charlie, the microphone is yours. Where are you from?
West Maui, Hawaii.
Oh, you're locally here. Okay, aloha.
So my question is really for you, given the fact that most of the CV instances in Hawaii were traced to travelers, whether it was visitors coming or residents coming back, the reopening of flights is going to be a very, very touchy situation, given that we have no control over those who get on the airplanes. So, you know, that kind of reopens our exposure once those flights start filling up again. How do you envision that that will be controlled?
Well, Peter, I don't know if you want.
Well, first of all, I think that's a really excellent question. There's two parts of travel. There's really three parts. Whom do you allow to get on the airplane? And then the second part is, how do you control it when the person gets off the airplane? Now, this is not only an issue of COVID-19. This has been a fear within the travel industry over the last 10 years or so, because we've always worried what happens if someone comes in with a highly contagious disease, or God forbid, let's say smallpox. And by the time we would figure it out, we would have a pandemic that would make COVID-19 look like child's play. So this is something that's going to have to be thought through very carefully. From a small perspective, such as Hawaii's, you will be able to, one of the things I would say is that you might certainly demand that airlines measure people's temperature before they get on the plane. Certainly American citizens, you cannot stop them coming, but you can say that once you get off the plane, you have to indicate where you're going. You have to go into quarantine for 2 weeks, and you can then check to make sure that that person is in the hotel. Now, that's not a perfect system, and in a lot of ways, it lacks good customer service. But at the current moment, that's about as far as we go. The real weak part of this link is also, we don't know what germs might be on the airplane. And so the person might get on the airplane being perfectly well, catch something, and it wouldn't manifest itself until hours or days later after the person's gotten off, is asymptomatic, but has already become a disease carrier. So your question is really a good one. It's going to take a lot of work to be able to come up with some functional system that's going to keep things safe. In the same way, we're going to see the same problem in the cruise industry, which is even going to be more dangerous because people are going to be for a long time, 3-4 days at a time on a contained, almost petri dish, which will be in the middle of the ocean. So we're going to have to really work to make sure that cruises are safe and that they are healthy, and that we're not going to create problems for people while they're on those cruises.
And Peter, if you and this is all very valid point, but if you look at our situation here in Hawaii, particularly, we're an island state, we're a small community. We rely on tourism almost 100%, even if you're not employed in tourism. It's it's part, you're indirectly employed in tourism. But exposing our people to this virus, even someone coming in looking perfectly healthy, by the time they get to the hotel, they get into a taxi, they talk to a front desk person, it may be already too late and spread.
You're right.
And there are initiatives in the world, whether they're working or not, it's too early to tell. We did a story on Emirates Airlines from Dubai, and they required all passengers to be tested, and they had a test developed that gives a response within 10 minutes. The test is not 100% accurate. I think they put a 60-some% on it. So maybe this will be the future to get everyone tested. But we all know eventually we have to open up our industry. Do we have to open it to the same masses of tourism coming in? Maybe not. It's all in the open, I think.
Yes. So it may be we got used to taking our shoes off when we went through security and taking our belts off. Now maybe they'll let us put our shoes on, but they'll make us take our temperature before we get on. So who knows? So the whole concept of security at airlines and seaports may be totally changed within a very short time.
Yeah,
So,
and
great question.
yeah, and Peter, there is a question from Jim McDaniel. I don't know where he's from. He's on the chat and he said he doesn't have a microphone, but he wants to see, do you think over-tourism will be less of a problem after this pandemic? More people going to less touristed places?
That's a really good question. The question for those who didn't hear it was over tourism, which were places such as Barcelona or Venice, Italy, where there were so many tourists coming in a few months ago that they literally thought that they would wipe out the local culture or the local city. The city was being incredibly impacted. It was like a tsunami of tourists. Certainly for a while, we're not going to have to worry about over tourism. Right now, we're on extreme under tourism. But at some point, we are going to have to figure out controls of how many people will be allowed, because you cannot have over tourism in social distancing at the same point. So therefore, if we're going to maintain a certain amount of separation between people, which is healthy no matter where you are or what time of life you are, then we're going to have to figure out how many people can a community or street handle, and how will we allow that within ethical limits, legal limits, international law limits, to control the numbers of people. So these are really good questions and things that slowly but surely we're going to be seeing. But for the moment, over tourism will not be a problem. It'll be a problem just getting any tourism.
And, thank you, Peter. There is a question, I don't know, Patrick Mercure, I think you're from Aruba. You had a question online. I unmuted your microphone. Can you hear us? Can you speak to us?
I can hear you. Hi.
Hi, Patrick.
The first question I had was regarding, let's say, the volume drive that the big corporations will go after. Obviously, you know, this is we all need to control the influx of a disease. But for a country, or actually we're a very small island, Aruba, one of the top countries in the world depending on tourism, like Hawaii. But to give you an idea, our total working population is 54,000 people. Currently unemployed are 25,000. So it's almost half. So how are you going to, you know, stop people from coming in? I know it's all about airlift. I know it's about controlling the cruise tourism, but these hotels, these big corporations want their volume. How are you going to eventually, you know, not go back to this, basically the same question that Jim had, to, you know, pumping volume because you need the money?
Extremely good question. With no real answer. And part of it is that Aruba, and I know Aruba very well. I worked with your tourism police, and I was the one who had to deal with the Natalie Holloway crisis many years ago. So I knew everyone from the prime minister down. Aruba, you're right, is totally dependent on tourism. It's the #1 industry. At some way, but even the big corporations, if you have a sick island, are not going to be able to make money. So the question is, are we going to have to maybe lower the volume somewhat in order to keep a steady flow? And that's going to be a hard sell. That's not going to be an easy sell to managers or to anybody else. But the idea of having 100% occupancy, unless there's a really change in the architectural design of hotels, buffets, et cetera, it isn't going to work. I can imagine many people right now wanting to go to a buffet and take the chance of somebody sneezing on the food. Now, they tried one way to the other. We're going to have to test every waiter to make sure they're not sick and not carrying. So there's a lot of work that's going to have to be done. And I think we're going to have to look at a very different form of tourism. Tourism may not be mass tourism anymore, which is very elitist, because mass tourism opened the opportunity to travel to millions of people. It now may become so expensive that only people who can really afford it will be able to do it. So we're going to have to figure out a way to maintain the democratic nature of 20th century tourism, and yet still have the necessary protections that 21st century tourism is going to be. It's going to be a really difficult fight, and I think we're gonna have a lot of political fights. I bet you it will be a major issue in the next Aruban elections.
Thank you, Peter. We have some more questions. I see Vincent is raising the hand. Dov, real quick, wanted to say something on the current subject for over-tourism. Dov, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. There is a very interesting concept that I've learned during the last weeks of one of the hotel chains, and they call this concept the concept of slow life. Slow life meaning sustainable, local, organic wellness, and life meaning learning, inspiring, fun experiences. I mean, that kind of wording is actually, in my view, is going to be the slogan of the post-corona tourism, certainly for the first a month or maybe even year or maybe even longer. I completely agree, Peter. I think about these elevators, going up in a 20-floor stories hotel with the 20 people in an elevator. I wouldn't go. So it really will change tourism dramatically, unless, of course, we will have a medical solution for all these problems. But even then, I mean, I think it will become part of our behavior.
Yes.
We won't do that again anymore. And that over-tourism, I think we should all be we should all be happy that, these extreme, like what you said, democratic performances, which of course we all adhere to, but I think we should all be happy that is going to change a little bit. I don't think it will come back. That will come back so soon.
You're looking for a job, think architecture and tourism. For example, one of the most dangerous things you can do is touch the buttons of an elevator where everybody touches them. So we're going to have to create elevators that you can speak to.
Yeah, it's going to be a change word. We have another, thank you, Dov. We have another question from Vincent Mugaba. Vincent, tell us where you're from, what you do, and what your question is.
Thank you so much. I'm Vincent from Kampala in Uganda, right in the heart of Africa. I'm a tour operator, and one of the biggest, maybe I'll begin with what Dov had talked about over tourism. One of the things we've been struggling with in Uganda is just getting the numbers. So when you talk about over tourism, for us, we haven't had that, and now everything has been wiped away. All hotels are closed, all companies, we are all under quarantine, we're all at home, no one is working. And I think it's gonna be hard for us in Africa to start up again, because we already have the disadvantage that even though we don't have the high numbers in Uganda, we have had 63 cases. Most of them have come in from outside of COVID. We have had no death, and 45 have already been discharged out of the 63. 45 have already left hospital. But there's still a lot of stigma. Many people still think Africa is a place where they'll find disease. And this stigma will still affect us even after COVID, in spite of the fact that we may not go the way of Europe. So over tourism, I think for us, we shall suffer more under tourism, and yet we need the tourism money to build the industry. Then the other thing I wanted to talk about was that we'll suffer a lot is in Uganda, one of our major products is gorilla tracking. Uganda has the largest number of mountain gorillas in the world. But because some of these diseases can be moved from humans to the primates, I don't see that coming up soon, anytime soon. That's one area that may be closed for a long time to come. Yes. So primates, culture, which means people have to get close to each other, all those aspects of tourism for us in Uganda will be gone for a long time. And yet, from the look of it, COVID is here to stay. So for us, our challenges will be, how do we start up again?
Those are really good points. As you know, in the United States, one of our tigers at a zoo got COVID-19. And yesterday, there were 2 cases of dogs getting COVID-19. So we definitely know that the disease can go from animals to people, but from people back to other forms of mammal life. We are working, both Juergen and I are working on the African Tourism Board, which is trying to come up with creative new ways to help the continent, not any one particular country, but the continent. And maybe Africa is going to have to work as at least Central Africa, North Africa, southern part of Africa, come through with ways that they can intercooperate to be able to create a new form of tourism. The two principles I think we have to take into account. One, tourism as we know it is going to be different. It's not what it was. It will be a different tourism. Secondly, whenever you have a crisis, there's always a lag time. And I think Juergen pointed that out with his sister when she said they opened the stores, but nobody showed up. So I think that is a major issue, because you can open up, but if nobody comes, it's the same thing. And it takes people a long while until they get used to that issue. So if you remember, the basic rule of tourism is that perceptions may not be correct, but they are always correct in their consequences. So the perception might be wrong, but the consequence is always true. And one of the things we're going to have to deal with, how do we change those once, hopefully we get to a better state in the health system, how do we change the perceptions so the consequences are not negative?
Yeah, Peter, you have a valid. In the case of Uganda, of course, Uganda was really never a country, from what I know, what had to suffer under mass tourism, as to speak of a similar portion, what, for instance, is going on in Spain or even here in Hawaii. By the way, off this record, Uganda has the best pineapples, I can tell you. I'm in Hawaii, we have pineapples, and everyone who talks to me about pineapples, I say, you got to go to Uganda and taste the pineapples.
I'm looking forward to it. The Brazilians might fight with you a little bit, but that's okay. We need to have.
You should come to Uganda.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can always look at the pineapples, but I mean, I know it is Uganda. You have a niche product. And I think the future in tourism will be niche products and not mass tourism. Yeah. And that, of course, also has a point. I got a comment here from Patrick Melchior. And I've opened up your microphone, Patrick. I don't know if you're still here. But you were saying because of this, prices will go up to the roof. Are you still there, Patrick?
No, I think we're starting to.
We lost him. Yeah. And is this a good thing if prices will go up to the roof? Do you think this will happen, Peter? And it might be a positive thing. Definitely when prices up to the roof, you don't have to worry about mass tourism so much.
This is going to be the issue. Prior to 1950, the first half of the 20th century, when there wasn't a war, tourism was only really for the elite. And then after World War II, we moved from elite tourism to what we might call democratic or popular tourism. In other words, a middle-class family could afford to go. Then we moved to low-cost airlines that allowed it almost to become bargain basement tourism. The good part of that was that everyone could afford to travel. The bad part of that was everyone could afford to travel, and that created a whole series of other problems. So now we're going to have to find some sort of middle range. We don't want to be elitist, but on the other hand, the world cannot just, the tourism industry cannot just take anyone and have turn it from a industry of beauty into an industry which is just basically a bargain basement. So it's gonna be again, this is gonna be a struggle within the industry. Maybe we should take one more question. It's almost 3 o'clock, and then we can let people go on to the rest of their day.
Yeah, if anyone else has a question, and I don't see anything here, but feel free to, there is unmute, there is Adriana Sasson. I'm sorry, where are you from, Adriana?
Hi, Adriana, and I'm from South Florida.
Oh, okay.
What tone do you think the airlines are going to set at this point? They're going to obviously restrict more routes. I saw one of the airlines say that they are now going to raise the basic economy fee for their baggage, which already tells me that they're setting up some more, I would say,
Hurdles.
massive, not just hurdles, but pricing. And do you think that with what's going on now, obviously to slow tourism, but just kind of bring it in as a trickle to different countries with the cut of routes, do you think we're going to see the airlines raise the fares once again so that they're almost unattainable to the average traveler?
I think there's a good chance of that. First of all, they're going to have to create more space between seats. You remember the airlines were just trying to put as many people onto a plane as could fit. You were lucky not to have your knees in your face. So they're going to have to now create social distancing. And that means they're going to have to probably cut their seating capacity maybe by as much as 50%. Unfortunately or fortunately, the airlines have received big bailouts from the government. And the history of the airlines is to ask, but not to give back. I don't want to sound too anti-airline, but that's exactly what happened after 9/11. You remember they got big bailouts and then took the money and didn't come through with their promises. So I think this is really the time that we have to pressure the governments to say to them, look, we're bailing you out, but an airline ticket is the only thing you can purchase that you can't give away, you can't return. It's a one-way ticket, literally. And I know I had to cancel a number of airline tickets because of this. And the airlines have kept my money. They tell me I have 2 years now to spend it, but they have my money and they won't return it. So airlines have not been easy to deal with. I think they're going to be really interested in the bottom line. And if they can't fill the planes with, let's say, 200 people, I'm making that number up, but for argument's sake, 200 people, they may try to fill those planes by another way, which is just upping fees. The airline fee industry has been huge. It is very negative for the tourism industry because it becomes such a hassle that people just say, if I can't go by car, I just don't want to go. So I think that's a really good question. And maybe that's a good place to end. We will be coming on again.
Peter, just one more, if it's okay, I'm sorry. I unmuted before. It wasn't, I don't know if Patricio Tamaris, I think you're from Ecuador. You had a question, and then we can wrap it up so we can get everyone really who had a question. Patricia, are you still there?
Hello, do you hear me good?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Buenos dias.
Hey, Peter. Hey, Peter. Buenos dias. Gracias. Right on the equator. Well, we had a terrible start to all this COVID-19 experience here in Ecuador. As you know, one of the worst things that happened to us was that the communication to the population just came in too late. And people never thought, because we have a tropicalized culture, never thought that this was going to really hit us. And we had 9,000 dead in 15 days. And today, for example, I was also affected with the COVID-19 infection. And I got out on an airplane, and luckily I had mild symptoms. And I've been out probably 36 days in quarantine inside a room. Then I was finally able to see the sun yesterday. And this morning, with all the protection and everything, I went out to go shopping for my family. And what was great was that just saw everybody very disciplined in Guayaquil. And everybody, you couldn't see smiles below the masks of everybody, but you could see their expressions in their eyes of, especially the people that are the essential workers, how their smiles would come from their eyes. And you could feel a certain vibration between all the people of seeing that we're happy to be together, So I'm asking, maybe, we're all planning very, very strictly, and it has to be like that. We have to have the biosecurity program in place for destinations with certification and with hotels, restaurants, and everything else, and all the protocols. But one thing that I see that could be a good advantage is that the people want to see each other again, you know, and I think that that's a big advantage I think that we'll have in tourism, because that's one of the biggest things, is that that intercultural exchange. Thank you.
Teresa, that's a really nice way to tie into also what Dov was speaking about, and the whole concept that we have to give hope. And human beings are herd animals. We like being with each other. And I don't think anybody has really enjoyed personal quarantine. So I think we're all happy to do that. I'm going to turn it over in just a second to Juergen. If you'd like to participate and be a guest speaker, I want to thank Dov again for Toda Rabah. Thank you so much for speaking to us from Israel. And if you'd like to be a guest speaker from any place in the world, just write us, let us know, and we'll be glad to let you speak about your country or your part of the business, or whatever it is that you think would be of value, and we'll give you some time on the program. Please let others know about this. It'll be on, it's usually on Wednesdays. Today we had to put it on a Thursday, but we try to get at least one program a week. It will also be on YouTube. And again, for those people who did not hear in the beginning, we will get a copy of Dov's presentation, and we have everyone's email, and we will send it out. So from Texas, we don't have aloha, but we do have howdy. And the way I'm now saying it is just good. And then you add good night, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, in any time zone you are. So good, and add your own noun afterwards. Thank you to everyone. Juergen, maybe you'd like to wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you very much.
May I just add shalom from Tel Aviv?
Shalom.
Shalom.
Yeah, thank you very much. And don't forget, go to projecthope.travel, not .com, projecthope.travel. Sign up, it's free. You're going to be part of this conversation, and we also, that's easy for us to stay in touch and get you on a future show. And of course, most important, read eTurboNews every day. You don't have to watch the news. As long as you read us, we're all happy. And again, thank you very much for everyone participating. And I know this was a lot longer session, but I think it went well, and we all had a lot of fun. And hopefully we can do that again very soon. Aloha from Hawaii, auf Wiedersehen, and see you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Take care. Howdy from Texas. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.